Another beautiful day.
San Diego, beautiful day.
Another beautiful day out here in the neighborhood. Being like little Mr. Rogers.
Let me know in the comments how many of you people understand that reference.
Get my little sweater on.
So welcome everybody back to another day in the life with ZHP Garage. Hope you guys are all doing well. If you guys have not seen the first episode, we talk a little bit about what this is. If this is your first episode,
You're missing out.
but if it is your first episode, go and check it out right
Still
here.
missing out.
So go check it out because you're missing out. Our 78 square body that we're going to be showing here right quick, and then we also got a couple other things going on later in the video for the 67 C10.
Nice wheels and tires.
Just a little miscellaneous stuff, you know.
It's out enjoying the day. Take care of errands, running errands.
Yes, sir. So how about we start with this truck here? We're going to talk about the backstory of how we got it, and then we're going to later on show the 67 C10 tires and wheels. What would you say they are?
10. Sick.
10.
Off the chart.
So we're going to show that later, and along with a couple other things. So let's get into this. Let's get into this truck right now.
Picked up this fine 78 up from West Covina. I was helping a friend pick up an old school. Well, actually, I was picking it up for her, an old school travel trailer.
The tires were squared from sitting for so long. First thing we were going to do was go and get new tires on it.
And we had to kill some time getting some tires put on the trailer. So we're driving around looking for cars and stuff to check out, and we came across this truck.
And one of our friends was along for the ride to help us pick up this trailer. We were driving by and we're like, hey, let's stop. Let's go see if they want to sell it. Then our friend thought we were joking. He drove right by. And then we're like, oh, guess we're not going to see if it's for sale. He's like, oh, I thought you guys were joking.
And asked the guy if he wanted to sell it. Obviously he sold it. And it happened to be the son of the original owner. I guess the guy died. It's been sitting for like 5 years.
And then a plane flew overhead and it made a whole bunch of noise. From the VIN tag, this truck was built in Fremont, California, so it's lived in California its whole entire life, which is actually really cool. It's rust-free, 100% original, other than lowering it from what we did to it. We added a hitch, powder coated the wheels, put the original hubcaps back on.
Carburetor fixed, gaskets intake, new tires. We're gonna use it for a little shop truck, but we have enough cars. We have enough trucks right now, so we're gonna wind up getting rid of it now. We're gonna put it up for sale. Put a hitch on it, towed the trailer. You see in the videos a couple times.
We didn't have an open trailer and enclosed trailer to load this thing onto, so we swapped out the front flat tire for a spare tire and drove it 100 miles home like a champ, man. Like it was never sitting for 5 years. The only thing that's holding us back from putting it up for sale is the ignition switch. The original ignition switch that was in here, it like seized up and we couldn't turn the key anymore. So when the master mechanic pulled it out, it pretty much just all fell apart, so we had to get a new ignition switch. So right now we've been starting it with a screwdriver, as you'll see in a minute. Let's get into that right now. Let's fix this and put this thing up for sale officially.
So even though we drove it 100 miles back home, it had some issues from sitting. So some of the stuff was, it had some oil leaks from the intake and the valve covers and everything. And then the carburetor has a quadrijet, and then the primaries. So if anybody knows anything about quadrijets, about how the base plate gets oblonged and then the butterflies don't close, gets the erratic idle and everything. So we had old Bob, a competition carburation, rebuilt the carburetor, bushed the base plate, fixed the quadrijet, and then we put a new distributor in it because the pins for the mechanical advance, they have the little bushings in there, and then so it was cut into the pins. Put a new distributor in it, did intake gaskets, valve cover gaskets, got it straightened out, got to pass smog. Runs good, did new wires, got some Taylors on here, so it drives good. The only problem with the thing is it's old school, so it's a little low geared, so cruising on the freeway, you're not doing much over 65, but it drives nice. Runs good. See how stock and original it is? Got all the jack and tools and everything here, the sticker, all original. It's got the sticker over here still. Thing's never been touched. But right now we're gonna do the ignition switch because the old one seized up in there. So we got our master key here. So this is how this works. So you got your little ignition, mechanical side of the ignition switch, right? Got this little notch in the bottom. So when you turn the key, all you do, turn the little notch, right? Well, that little notch goes into this little notch. So this fits in here, a little notch, right? Okay, and you got your little teeth. These little teeth, this is in the column. And this goes down to your electrical side of the ignition switch. So then when you turn the key, it pushes on that, which starts it, and that's what turns it off, right? Well, this ignition switch, little springs and codes for the key came out in here, and it seized up in here. We couldn't turn the key anymore. It got stuck on, so we couldn't shut it off. So we had to. That was another battle. So I got this out. So now we use the master key. So what we're doing is we're getting the key in here and we're pushing on these teeth and we're starting it. So you just go like this. You just put it in there and you just rotate it. See? Fire right up. No big deal. We're gonna fix that. So we're gonna put it back to having a key again. So there's different styles of these. This is obviously a non-tilt column. So if there's a tilt column, this would have like a notch in it. So it would rotate with the column, but this is a fixed. Two different styles if you're trying to do this yourself. But now we're going to take this. That's why it's not all together. I got the parts over here on the floor from when I took it apart. Now we're going to take it back apart. So we're going to show you, if you care, how to replace your ignition switch and take apart your column in your good old square bodies. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the nut back off. So before you do this job, you normally want to make sure that your steering wheel is straight. But this steering wheel is already off center because we did drop spindles and lowering springs, 1-inch springs. So the front end's out of whack. So after we do this, we're going to go take it and get it aligned. So our steering wheel's off center. This is our straight, but normally you want to make sure your steering wheel's straight. Normally the end of the steering column has a notch in it and it lines up with the steering wheel. We're going to start with taking this nut off. I got a couple tools right here. Let me grab my tools. More than likely, unless you really want to beat on your column, is a steering wheel puller. And then you're going to need a little special tool here to collapse the lock plate down. I'll show you this in a little bit. But these are pretty much the two tools that you're going to pretty much need to do this job if you're going to do it yourself. Like I said, we're going to start with taking the nut off. So it might not be, you might be able to pull it off. This is on here pretty tight, so we're going to use the puller. If you are going to try to pull it off, which you can, if you get crazy with it, you want to leave the nut on there so it doesn't come off, and because you can pull on it pretty hard. But I'm going to use the puller. I don't want to get crazy on the old column. It's kind of a nice job because you get to sit down, just relax. So we had to use the longer bolts because it was hitting the steering wheel. So you want to get them even. It's probably not going to take much. We're just going to use a little ratchet. It's going to, yeah, see, it didn't take much. Probably could have pulled it off, but. So now we have our steering wheel. You see these notches where straight would be, but you know, our toes out right now, so it's over here. Okay, this is the plate I was telling you about. So this is a plastic cover, so you got to get this clip out of here. Stout little spring below it that holds tension on the column, that holds everything together. So that's where you're going to need this little tool. So you're going to put this guy threads on the top of the same threads that hold the steering wheel down, and then it has this little cover that protects the splines, right? So you got to get your nut here, it's backed all the way up. You got to make sure you got enough threads here to start it. But it should bottom out here on the bottom of the shaft. It's got a wrench at 7/8. We got the metric version, 22 millimeter. So then you run this down. You need enough to get the spring out of there. Springs in, or the clip out of there. Clips in a little groove. So it pretty much is going to bottom out. That's as far as it's going to go right there. So then you want to get a couple picks. Do with one or two. Normally you need one to pick it up and then one to pull it up. You can pop it up and then you get behind it and you can pull it up. Kind of want to be a little careful with it so you don't expand it more than it needs to be expanded. Once you get it both sides up, you can only go up to the bottom of the little tool. Then you loosen it up. It's going to take that tension off. This is a locking plate that keeps you from turning the wheel when the key's off. Then you take off your whole, get the clip and the whole locking plate. See, it's metal on the backside. There's normally this pin here, a little spring-loaded pin that goes in here, and that's what comes up and locks in here. Keeps you from turning the wheel when your ignition's off. Kind of want to stack the parts in order so you can put it back together. Then you got your little horn contact. You got a little spring in your horn contact. This is the spring that you're collapsing. So this spring here pushes up against the bearing, and that's what holds everything tight. Here's your horn contact that rubs on here. That's so you can honk at people and turn the steering wheel at the same time. So normally you would take off your hazard right here. We already took it off. Like we said, we're already in here. So now you need a Phillips screwdriver. Now we're gonna take off our little turn signal lever, little handle here. You kind of keep track of the screws because they vary, so you don't want to mix them up. Set this screw with the handle. We know that screw goes with that. Now we're gonna take off the screws. There's 3 screws for our turn signal, so you have to rotate it to get them all out. So one's right here, okay, and then you got one right here in the bottom. And this one on the top here, you gotta be turning. Gotta be turning to get to it. So this is where you gotta drop the column down. There's a side plate right here. So these two on each side, and then there's 2 nuts to hold the column up to the dash. Because the harness, it has a plastic piece that comes up the column. It's incorporated to the square on this cover. So you have to pull this harness up to get it out of the way. So now I'm gonna take this little cover off. So we're just gonna get an extension to get away from the column, or to get away from the dash. And then this comes off with the hold down. So there's two hold down nuts. Make sure the column doesn't come down and hit you. So this is your little retainer. Get that out of the way. Now you can pull your column down a little bit. And it has this little plastic clips here. These little squares fits over on the other side and holds the harness from moving up. So now that this is all, here's your whole harness that goes up the column is all loose. Now you can push it up and take your whole turn signal switch here. And then watch your screws, they're gonna fall out. So now we're gonna take these 4 out here. That's gonna gain us our access. You get your 4 little screws. Now, not all comes apart now. You can't get it all the way off because of your harness. So you just pull this out of the way. See this little rod right here? Right here? It goes down. So it goes down the electrical side of the ignition switch is on the bottom of the column. So this rod comes up here, and that's what pushes on the electrical side of the ignition. The mechanical side pushes on the electrical side down there. You say you want your ignition switch, you need to know if you want the mechanical side of it or if you want the electrical side of it. Now we need to see if we're going to replace this. It's probably pretty chewed up now because we've been using a screwdriver. So this just slides over the top of the rod that goes down the column. That's what moves it, and the column holds it in there tight. So this kit is a little bit off. So this is the right style, but it's a little fatter. It doesn't fit in here. So I reused the old little rod here, but I'm going to use the new little gear that goes in here. So this part goes to the ignition switch, and this part just sits in here. So this goes right here. Got to go through the ignition hole, get it in. Put a little bit of grease on this little shaft that it pivots off of, and then we got to line this up with the ignition when we go back in. And see, there's this little spring-loaded clip here on top. So this, you want to put a little bit of grease up here on the top, as you can see that it pivots off of right here. A little spring-loaded. We're gonna leave this off, and we're gonna put this up in here first, because this is gonna be held in place, and then we can slide this in. So I'm gonna put a little grease in these teeth. Then you see the pin slides right here, holds all this straight also. Now we're gonna put this back up in here. See, where's your lock, your shifter? All your gears are right here. This little, the pin for the steering wheel, it goes into here, so it's able to get sucked down and pushed up. This little spring-loaded here, little bushing, so this guy's got to go in here like so. So that's got to sit in there. So we're gonna put a little grease on this so it slides through the column here easily. So get some grease on here. All right, so I had to unbolt the ignition, the electrical side of the ignition switch, so I can get this rod up high enough, because you got to put this pin, little guy here, together in here before you can put it up here. So now that I have it in here, this is for the ignition, and this is for the locking. So you can see when I turn the key off, see how it comes up. When you turn the key on, it goes down. Okay, so this ignition switch is what controls that. So you got to get it in this little tab here. So now that I got that all in here like it's supposed to be, I'm gonna throw a little bit of grease on the side of this. Everything looks good there now. So now I can slide this back on. Then as I come on, I can hook up the rod for the ignition switch there. Okay, so now that's going to go down into the column. There it is. There it is. Okay, make sure your little rod's getting straight down the center. All right, now we got it all together. So now we got our locking pin. See how it's spring loaded. So as the well, the ignition's not holding it, so I just push the rod down. Here, see the rod up. But see how it's spring loaded. So it'll be down until you turn the steering wheel and it falls in one of the detents. Okay, so now we got that all together. So now we can put our four screws back in. So now we got our key off, so you can't get it out of gear until you turn the key. Now we get our plastic gear here. Make sure that our ignition, so all the way off is is up. So we'll just pull our rod all the way up. We'll slide this back in here. Before I get it all the way together, I want to double check. So with the ignition in it, okay, and then we turn it on, we should be able to get it out of gear. Okay, so we're good there. Turn the key off. I might have got the wrong ignition. I don't know why that guy's not locking in there. Check on that guy. But anywho, got our locking pins up here. Okay, looking good. So now we're just going to check these by hand. And then I'm going to put the electrical side of the ignition switch back on. So now I'm going to put the lower part back on it. We got to get this rod, goes into the ignition switch here. So it's bent up here at the bottom. Here's your ignition switch. So it has a groove right there where this rod goes into right here. It hooks up on top. It's going to go into that hole right there. When you turn the key, it moves that, and this is your electrical side of your ignition switch. So this sits on the bottom of the column. So we're going to put this back in there now. So now we got our ignition switch back on it. So we want to check it before we put it back together and have to take it back apart. So got a turn signal. Got to make sure we're in park. There we go. So now we can put our turn signals back up here, so we can put our harness or our column back up. So we got to line up our 3 screws. We'll just slide the harness back down the column. Then we get our 3 screws for our column. You want to tighten them down all evenly to make sure it doesn't get cocked. Make sure you give it a good push when you tighten it down, because you don't want to round any of these Phillips off. It'd be really pain in the butt to get them out. Now we can put our turn signal knob back on. And you make sure it lines up because it sits in this groove. Normally you put the little indicator on before you put the column back up. It would go right here, but this one got broken, so I'm gonna have to get a new one of those. So we just tuck that behind the column for right now. So I got the hazard switch put back in. And then there's a washer here that goes on the end of the column. You gotta make sure that goes in there first, because that's what the spring rides on. So now we're gonna put our horn contact in. And then this is what you gotta line it up with the steering wheel. Can't really move it when it's together, so you kinda wanna get it in the right spot now. It goes through the steering wheel right here for your horn contact. So that's where your steering wheel is gonna be. So try to get it off without moving it. And now you're gonna get your retaining plate. That's what the teeth are on the column for. So now we're gonna put this in here. See, it's kind of indexed. There's a big gap here. And all the other ones are close by, the teeth. The big gap goes here on top. Then you get your clip. You gotta put it on there first. Try to push it down as far as possible. Use our old ignition, or old master key. You double check your steering wheel. Make sure that horn contact is all good. And then get your specialty tool. And this should go pretty easy. You shouldn't have to totally wrench on it to get it to go down. So if it's not going, something's stacked wrong, it should stop. Once it bonds on that spring, and you should see the little groove, and you just push your clip down, it should pop into the groove. Because it might be a little expanded, you gotta keep an eye on it. You might need to squeeze it in a little bit because it goes in and locks into place. Then we're gonna get our little pick. So as it comes up, we're gonna make sure it's shoved into place. Make sure it's down where it needs to be, so it's locked in all the way. So we got it all finished up. Got the steering wheel on it, horn contact, a little lower panel, a little dirty. Got it all back together. So now we're gonna take it. We're gonna go get it aligned now. See, that steering wheel's locked. See, works good. So yeah.
All right, so now that the sun is setting, we are going to not be able to mount the C10 tires today, which is unfortunate, but we're gonna be able to do it in the next day or two. So we're gonna be showing that later on in this video. So stay tuned for that. But we're gonna go home, get ready for tomorrow, because we have to put a cat in a vehicle, and we're gonna show you that. So let's do that right now. Let's transition. All right, so it is the next day. It's about 7:30 right now. We're heading up to LA area to work on a vehicle for a company that we do work for. So on Christmas Day, they have one of their, well, it was actually on 2 vehicles, but we're only fixing one of them because they only need one of them fixed. They had 2 cats out of 2 different vehicles cut off with this, with the Sawzall. Some guy jumped the fence, cut the cats off of these cars, and took both of the cats. And then when they came back to work, they started up the car, and we're going to fix it right now. And let's get to it.
GM's on a back order for their cats, so I was able to get a cat, but I wasn't able to get the right side cat. So the only cat that I was able to get is the passenger cat, and they cut the driver's cat out. It's the same cat, just a different exhaust pipe, and they don't offer them aftermarket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this cat out, and I'm going to weld it in where they cut the driver's cat out to fix the car, to get their truck back on the road. So I already went underneath the car and I cleaned up. I cut it at an angle, whoever stole it. So I cut it straight. I got the exhaust underneath the car straightened out now. So I'm gonna cut this right here. The only problem that I'm gonna have is this one has the post 02 in it here. And then I need this piece of pipe. And then the one in it, post 02 is back further. So the 02 is back here. So I'm gonna have to cap this off. So to just have a plug, that's the only thing I'm gonna have to do is just cap that. So I'm gonna cut this right here, and then this will be enough length. I'll take it over and weld it into the van here, and get their van back on the road. So I'm gonna cut this right now. There we have it. We got our new cat. So now we're gonna go. We got the welder set up here, a little life support line. We got the welder set up. So now I'm gonna go underneath, and I'm gonna weld this one in. Now we got it all set up. Now we're gonna weld it up in there. So I had to change the configuration a little bit. I had to add a piece to the front, because if it was all the way up, it hit the other cat that's in there. So I had to shorten the back. So I cut it back even, and then I add a little piece to the front here. So now I almost have it to fit. It's almost there, but it's kind of hard to cut it straight by eye with the Sawzall. So I got to do a light sand on the pipes. I'm gonna do the pipes underneath here. These ones here look straighter. So I'm gonna sand the ones underneath the car a little bit, and then I should be able to get this guy to fit in there tightly, and I can get it welded. Just have just a sandy disc, not a grindy disc. So I'm just gonna do a sand on it. So this is where they cut it out right here. They got the driver's side cat, which would be your bank 1. See here, the post 02's right here, so I don't need to have it in this bung. So that's why I had to plug that one, because I got it. They cut before the 02. So I got it fitting pretty tight now, so I should be able to get it, cram it up in here. We'll get this side lined up. We'll tack this side first, and we'll have to manipulate that back a little bit. A little toasty still from being welded. Let me get my mask. Let me get my mask and gloves. All right, so I'm gonna get this thing back into position here, right on the bottom. Watch your eyeballs. Now it'll hold it from coming down. I won't get this side up. Put a tack on the back here now. And now we got it tacked, we're gonna weld it up. So I almost got it all welded all the way around, but I can't fit this up here and see to get to the top. So what I think I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna pop the drive line out really fast. Then I'll have enough room I can get to the top and finish welding the top of this. Because if I can't get it that way, then I'll have to pull the whole exhaust down, and I think it'd be easier to pull the drive line. All right, so I got the straps off, bolts out. So we're gonna slide this forward, pop the drive line out. It's gonna leak a little bit, so we got a pan, catch it. Oh man, that's some nice fluid there. Holy cow. I think it might be time for a training service. We're gonna catch fluid out of the yoke here. Once it slows down a little bit, I'm just gonna slide this back out of the way a minute. Now we can get up top here. We got some more room. Get up here, weld the top of this. So we got it all in, got it all done. Got it welded all the way around, the front and back. So no more John Deere. Got the cat back in it. Now they can get the truck back out and making them money. So we're gonna put the drive line back in it now. We'll lower it down. We'll start it up. Show you how nice and quiet it is. I should have started it before, but it's just half open exhaust. It's just been super loud. But we're gonna throw the drive line back in it, tighten it up, the caps, clean this little mess up here. Don't forget, take it out of gear before you do this, or else you gotta be really good at lining it up in the same exact spot of where it was. So then you can rotate it to line it up with U-joints. U-joint back up with the pinion. All right, all done. Let's lower this thing back on the ground. Fire it up. All right, let's fire this thing up. Look at this, whisper quiet. Now we can get back on the road, man. Start making some money again. Let's go to the next job.
All right, it has been a few days. We are now back in the square body, and we are running over to get this thing aligned because since it has been lowered, pulling a little to the left, so we need to align it to get it back straight. And we also got the wheels and tires for the C10 in the bed, so we're gonna get those mounted on there and show you that in a little bit. So let's do it right now.
All right, so we're here at the tire shop. We're gonna get this wheels and tires mounted up for the C10 we're building, the 67. Look pretty trick. Already took the center cap out of this one. So we're gonna get these mounted up, see them all done. All right, got them all mounted here. Check these. Got a noisy tailgate on the old bus here. Oh, sorry, the old square body. Look at these big old things. Looks pretty trick. Man, 20 by 12 wheel. Look at these tires, 325, 35, 20. These are the rears. These are the rear little guys. And we have our fronts, 20 by 9. 20 by 9. What are these? 275, 35, 20s. 67 is going to be trick. Gotta get back over there and work on it now. Gotta get that suspension done. I think the old C10 is going to make old Buster look like it's tied to a stump.
I don't know about that. If you guys enjoyed the video, please go down below, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment on this video. We like to look at all the comments that you guys make. Go and check out the first episode of The Day in the Life if you haven't already, right about here. Or somewhere here, I don't know.
I'm gonna go eat some more crayons now.
He's gonna go eat some more crayons. Master Mechanic needs some help. All right, see you guys all in the next video.